Welcome to our first ever Settlement Project Holiday Potluck, what? Luncheon.
All right.
And we're delighted to have Richard here today with us.
Amen.
And Emmy Lewis. And I'll probably get in trouble for this, but you're going to find her bio in there as well. I slipped it in there. That's okay, because I want people to know about you. So anyway, in just a moment, Emmy's going to introduce Richard, and he's going to share with us and speak whatever's on his heart and mind. But
okay.
you're going to introduce Richard in just a moment.
Sure.
Emmy
I'll
loves
send you my bill.
I know, Emmy loves surprises. Well, first of all, this brochure is thanks to Emmy in large part because she was coaching our founder, President Frank Kaufman, on how to position, how to position ourselves in the market, how to talk about ourselves, how to explain who we are to people. And so Emmy was, through several conversations that we had, she was instrumental in helping us put this together. And it's a phase one. It's a beginning point, but it's very good. Now, one quick piece of housekeeping matter. The Settlement Project will be doing some advanced leadership seminars starting in the spring of 24. There's a piece in your folder on that on the left-hand side. You can read that later. But we'll be reaching out to everybody, inviting you all to come and participate in that as well. And on the other side of the folder, you'll find a recent paper that Richard wrote about the left. The left is massively outperforming us conservatives, and a piece that he wrote back in August, pro-abortion leaders are beating pro-life leaders like a drum. So then you'll find the bios as I mentioned. So this is for you to take home, keep and take home. It's for you to have. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Emmy Lewis, to introduce Richard.
My goodness, well, thank you. Welcome all, and what a delight to be here, and wonderful to have surprises. And it's no surprise that Richard Viguerie is a great American.
Yes.
And that's all you need to have to say. But I first met Richard many years ago when I was in college and active in Young Americans of Freedom. And Richard was the executive director in the early days of Young Americans of Freedom. And then I saw him again at the Republican National Convention in California and had the privilege of working for Richard for a little less than a year at his very successful then Richard A. Viguerie Company, now American Target Advertising. Mm-hmm. And I always say that everybody in the political direct mail fundraising world or nonprofit direct mail fundraising world, we all stand on his shoulders. And that's why all of us go all the way, practically up to heaven, because he has supported us and trained us and influenced us immensely through his knowledge of advertising principles and marketing, and most of all, a love of country, a love of God, and a love of fellow Americans. Yes. So I'm very proud to introduce Richard.
Yeah, Richard.
And welcome.
If you don't mind, I'm going to sit down. I was just saying, as a gentleman over here, that I just celebrated the 40th anniversary of my 50th birthday. And I literally go 12, 13 hours a day, 5.5 days a week. I was up at 5:30 this morning, and Saturday's my best day. The office can't call me. I don't call them. So anyway, I like to take advantage of it. But my health is great, and I literally don't know anybody at any age that keeps up with me. I understand Donald Trump looks more than I do, but I don't know him. Anybody I know. So anyway, but the one thing I don't do well is my balance. I'm working on it. Going to physical therapy and all that, but so if you don't mind, I'm going to sit down here. So Emmy said, I was fortunate to be the first to do political direct mail back in the 50s. This is what they say, the microphones of the country back in the 50s, 60s, conservatives' message went up against it and it fell to the ground. We were the tree that fell in the forest. Nobody knew about our causes, our canvass, our issues, etc. So starting with direct mail, we could go around this blockage that the left had, NBC, ABC, New York Times, etc., right into people's homes. And it just changed everything. I can make a strong case that Reagan would not have been nominated for president in 1980 if it hadn't been for direct mail. While George Bush and Howard Baker and Bob Dole and John Connally are getting $1,000 contribution, Reagan has got $250,000, $10, $15, $25, $50 donation. Anyway, direct mail, there'd be no concerted movement worthy of the name without direct mail. Tom and I were just talking about that. Tom and I go back a long ways too. Direct mail has built the conservative movement. And I was just telling Tom that my counterpart on the left is a man named Roger Crater, and we're good, literally dear friends. And I saw him recently at my birthday party, and I said he'd been saying for years that 90% of all money that's raised through the new and alternative media, direct mail, internet, phones, and TV, 90% comes from direct mail of those four, including the internet. Is that still true, Roger? He says, no, it's now 93%. So it's the workhorse, okay? It doesn't have all the glamour and and when I got involved back in the 60s, that was 1860, it was direct mail marketing was not a mature industry. It's a very mature industry now, business, etc. Every major Fortune 500 company's got a direct marketing, direct mail division, etc. Not so with the internet. You got kids out there, 25 years old, who couldn't maybe spell direct marketing, doing it, and it's just we'll figure it out. It might be next week, might be 5, 10 years from now. We'll figure it out, but we haven't figured it out yet. So in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, conservatives dominated grassroots marketing. The left wasn't involved in all. They got their funding mostly through government money, taxpayer money, unions, and foundations. Those three major forms of government and foundations and unions supplied them all the money. And during the 70s, when I began to get a bigger company, we had hundreds of employees, and began to get some publicity out there, I began to get over the target of the left and was regularly attacked above the fold. New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, ABC, CBS, all through the 70s, just literally just attacked on daily. All of the criticism stopped within a few hours. Election night, November 1980. That's what Viguerie and friends have been up to. So let us go out there and do what Viguerie is doing. And so I told all my friends, Ed Fulner at Heritage Foundation, Wyrick and Howard Phillips and everybody else, don't worry. It's taken me 25 years to do this. It's going to take them 30 years. Because I'm smarter than they are. Not so. Within 5 years, the left had caught up with us, and now they run circles around us. Yeah. They have about 20,000 single-issue liberal nonprofit organizations. We have about 1,500. They raise 700% more money than we do from 700% more donors. They have something in excess of 20 million unique individual liberal donors. We have about 3.5 million. And the pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So we've got a lot of problems in marketing and communication is one of them. I hadn't planned on mentioning this, but I will since I had popped in my head here. One of the things that you have to do with the voters is give them a tune to whistle. And Reagan did that. Reagan said, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years earlier?" Former governor of George Allen here in Virginia, you do the crime, you do the time. There's some people, about Jim Gilmore followed him. No car tax, etc. What's the most powerful slogan, tune to whistle, in the last 40 years in American politics? Anybody got an idea?
Are you better off?
Are you better off?
What's that?
Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? No.
Make America great again.
Oh,
Even the liberals agree with me when I tell them that. I say, you got to give the voters a tune to whistle, okay?
Yes,
And in 2021, Glenn Youngkin, CRT in Virginia schools. In 2022 election, the Democrats put 2 tunes in people's minds.
Yeah.
Abortion.
Well, exactly. A woman's right to choose is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot, January 6th. Okay? Republicans, crickets.
Yeah.
Dollar, zero, okay? And this last election, 2023, same thing. It just, you can't beat something with nothing. And so anyway, the law of the jungle is eat or be eaten. The law of politics is define or be defined. And we're not out there defining our opponent. They're defining us. All my political life, for a very long time, Democrats branded us. It's not now so, but for the first 60, 70 years of my life, they branded us as the party of rich.
Yes.
Wall Street, big business, trickle down economics, okay? And that's a brand that stuck with it. Yeah, we haven't done that to them now, and that's one of the things I'm working with to brand the Democrat. Tom over here with the Washington Times came up with a great idea, and I don't normally steal things, but I just want to steal that. We've got to, we've heard.
I'll give it to you for free. You help me grow the time.
I'll do that. It's a deal. No, I have somebody from a libertarian organization. I'm not a libertarian, but come out to see me this next Thursday. They called and asked if I would help them grow their organization. And I told this to anybody that asks, I am nothing if I'm not about growing the conservative movement. That's what drives me. It's what gets me up at 5:30 this morning, growing the conservative movement. So if I can do anything to help the Washington Times, I certainly want to do that. So I got myself sidetracked. Where was I going, Tom?
You're going to define something.
Tom's slogan.
The slogan, you're going to give us the
What was
slogan.
the idea you were
Yeah. We all heard about the moral majority.
to steal it.
Thank you. Moral majority. Tom came up with there's an American majority.
Yeah.
And that, these people are anti-American, they're anti-God, anti-police,
And Richard, that's Newt Gingrich. That's Newt's concept.
Tom is reading a book I just finished, Newt Gingrich. I don't think it's his last one. I think I heard him this week talking about you, and he's prolific, as you know. There. But it's something about the road to the majority.
The road to the majority, that's what it is.
I'm getting myself sidetracked here. In the mid-70s through the mid-80s, my wife and I, 61 years now, had a very nice home in McLean, 22-room, big house, centrally located. And so for 10 years, the leaders of the conservative movement, Morton Blackwell, Fulner, Wyrick, etc., 8, 10 of them, Ron Godwin, the moral majority, would come to my house for 2 hours, from 7:30 to 9:30 every Wednesday morning. And we'd plot and plan to the extent that it could be anything that could be called Hillary Clinton's vast right-wing conspiracy. and then there was a period of time when we would reconvene in the evening with the same people for breakfast, again, drinks and dinner in the evening, but this time with 6, 7, 8 young congressmen, the back benches, Newt Gingrich, Ben Weber, Bob Walker, and we would do this, for some extended period of time, a year and a half, 2 years. And during the evening, we'd come up with problems. We wanted to solve pass legislation, defeat legislation. Gingrich would always go to the blackboard. We didn't have whiteboards in those days. And he'd write 5 words on there, 4 categories: vision, goals, strategy, and tactics / project. He's just famous for that. And I do that once, twice, 3 times a week. I don't dare take a trip. I don't pick up the phone for a really important phone call with a client or a new client, perhaps, that I don't. What's my vision for the phone call, for the trip? What's my goals? What's my strategy? What's my tactics / project? And so I commend that to everybody who's involved in projects, doing that little exercise. So I'm in a meeting with 20 conservative leaders in New Orleans right before the pandemic, and I'm just going on and on about low energy. Conservative leaders have low energy. The left so much, they do all the things that we don't do. They have really high-level leaders, people like John Podesta, Eric Holder, and Mark Eisels, and Obama. It just goes on and on and on. We don't have anybody like that. Think about all the conservative organizations out there. What organizations, what people does the left fear? I'd be hard pressed to think very many that they fear. We fear lots of them out there. They don't. You talked, Carl, about my life article on. I wrote an article a couple of months before the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade, and before it came down, and I said the pro-life leaders are not ready to win. They've not done their job. We're about a 40% pro-life country, 60% pro-choice. And sure enough, we're not ready to win. And I've got any number of clients that are pro-life clients. I love them all, But if they grow their organization 7-8%, they're just really thrilled. In November 2016, Planned Parenthood had 400,000 supporters. 12 months later, November 2017, 1.6 million. 400%. You know, I don't know any conservative organization out there that grows 100%, much less, you know, 400%. So anyway, I'm in New Orleans and I'm singing this song and complaining about this, complaining about that, and a small group like this, I can say it, you can't print it though. Tom Fenton of Judicial Watch weighs in and says, Richard's right. He said, I've done a list, I can only come up with 12 national conservative leaders who have high energy. So after the meeting was over with, I did my own list. I got to 9 to 10, I couldn't get to 12. So of all the problems we've got, number one, leadership. When I went with YAF in 1961, number one problem, leadership. And now, 60 plus years later, number one problem is leadership. And I was telling Reverend John there, the number one area of leadership that we lack is the religious community. My faith is Catholic. You know, the FBI is going after Virginia Catholics. Silence from the church. Silence. Can you say you reverse that? If it happened to the black community, the Hispanic, there'd be riots in the street. They'd be screaming and yelling. And we're just very silent. You know? So the problem is not people in this room here, quite frankly. The problem is the leadership. In 2020, Kathleen Patton, the president, I'm chairman of the company. Kathleen Patton, who Emmy knows very well, and Tom does, sent everybody home, 85 employees. I guess we had 75 of those. They sent all our employees home. I didn't know if I'd have a company 6 weeks later. We had our best year ever. And I'm the last person standing nationally doing marketing who was there at the beginning, you know, of our real crisis. You know, I was there for doing national marketing when Kennedy was killed and the Cuban Missile Crisis and, you know, MLK's death, etc. So I knew what to do. And so most nonprofits went into a fetal position. I said, no, mail. And then a little later I said, no, you're not hearing me. Mail more. And they did. I said, no, mail more. You know, and we had our best year ever, as I said, and mailed 139 million postal letters that year. And at the end of the year, we had a company-wide meeting, and I said, you're really good, but you're not as good as you think you are. You're good, you were fishing, and you caught a lot of fish, but the fish were jumping in the boat, okay? The people at the grassroots level were engaged. Unfortunately, we don't have the leadership that provides that leadership out there. So one of the things we'll talk about here in just a minute is how to do that. Let's see. I was saying earlier to some of them that it's important to remember a lot of things, but few things more important than that we are heavily in the midst of a spiritual civil war. We were in a cultural war in the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and we didn't know we were, we didn't act like it, and we got our head handed to us, and we lost the cultural war. I was just complaining that to some of them at lunch that what's the number one cause of abortion? And I've got, as I said, lots of clients that are pro-life clients, and I tell them all, you're playing with band-aids. You know, you're dealing not dealing with the cause. You know, you're just putting a band-aid, giving them an aspirin. You're not going to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem of abortion is called sex outside of marriage. When's the last time a religious leader? You hadn't been at Reverend John's church, you'd know that. But you know, once every year, every other year, I might hear a sermon that gets into it a little bit. But my wife had a stroke some years ago, so her mind's fine. She's paralyzed on the left side, so she watches a lot of television at an assisted living facility, and she knows every preacher can tell you his life history, etc. And I'd watch them with her. Not one of them hardly ever goes in that area there. So we like that leadership. So, anyway, all right.
And there was a minister who said, "Don't be playmates, be prayer mates."
Yeah.
In other words, don't have sex outside. Pray together.
The 1902, a very famous pamphlet. Lenin asked this question: "What's to be done?" Right. And so today I asked the same question in my writings of what's to be done. And for the most part, you know, I go to lots and lots of meetings that you know, not well publicized meetings as Tom does and Emmy does, and anybody who wants me to be involved in their organization, their project, their ideas, I'm available. I'll do it. But mostly, I want to focus on my own. With it, we have 85 employees now, as I said, and I want to focus on having. I'm the last person standing politically who was there at the beginning of the conservative movement. So, as the kids say, I've been there and done that. I know what to do. There's a wonderful movie. I commend it to all of you. I'm sure many of you, if not most of you, have seen it. 1776. And it's a wonderful one. I've seen it 7, 8 times. I love it. And there's a wonderful scene in there where they've been fighting and bickering all day long and can't get along and just nobody's in agreement with anybody else. So they adjourn for lunch and they go to the pubs or whatever. And Adams, it's a musical. So Adams comes back to the hall, Constitution Hall, and he's talking to himself. And he has a line that he repeats several times. And I just love it. He says, "Can't anybody see what I see?" He can see America. He can see all of it. Just listen to me. I know what to do. You know, can't you see what I see? Can't you? So anyway, I just tell my friends, can't you see what I see? I've been there. I know what to do. Anyway, in my opinion, the vast majority of the conservative leaders, and most, you know, there may be a few I don't know, but I know 90% plus of them, and almost all of them are friends of mine. Many of them are dear friends. But not a lot of them have high energy. I mean, Morton Blackwell's an exception, Tom Fitton, Mike Ferris, you know, Jenny Thomas, etc. But there's not a lot of us out there. And by the time you're 40, 50, quite frankly, your DNA is pretty well set. I was telling somebody this week that if I'm really, really honest, I'm probably not in any significant way different than when I was 20, 30, you know. At the margins, hopefully I've improved a little bit, but I'm been hardwired, and we're all hardwired. And if you don't have that energy by the time you're 30, 40, you're not going to get it at age 60 or 70. So all that's by way of saying, mostly we're going to save America. We're going to save it with people like in this room there, and leadership is going to have to come from the younger ones. You know, it was a 20-something-year-old Ed Fuller and Paul Wyrick that started the Heritage Foundation, Terry Dolan, Wyrick, and all these people, you know. And so it's going to come mostly from the youth. But the leadership of every major institution in America, no exception, every major institution is arrayed against us. Higher education, lower education, Hollywood, entertainment, big business, unions, you know, it just goes on and on and on. So I said organized religion. So I'm giving this speech to a bunch of Tea Party leaders 10 years ago. And after one of the, after my talk, a couple hundred Tea Party leaders there, and one of them comes up and says, "Mr. Viguerie, I like everything you said. There's one thing I disagree with you on." What? That. I said, "What's that?" It says, "Organized religion is not rated against, you know." I said, "Oh, yes, it is." Says, I asked him, "What religion is Southern Baptist?" Says, "You Southern Baptists aren't organized. Us Catholics are organized." And so the organized religion is rated against our views and values. So anyway, one thing they don't have, one thing the left doesn't have, it's all of y'all. We're still a 50-50 country. We're still, at the end of the day, you know, we've got the majority of governors, we've got almost, you know, even in the House, we are a little bit more in the House, and almost there in the Senate, you know. And so the people are with us out there. We've got, you know, in the history of the Republican Party, the issues have never lined up so favorably to us as they do now. You know, just think, you know, defund the police and out of control spending and open borders, and it goes on and on and on. And just, you know, they want to, you know, they're anti-God, anti-America, anti-Constitution. They want to change everything out there, and but the average voter doesn't know that because of the silence of our leaders. They're just, you know, they're just silent. So if we're going to save America, it's going to be with the grassroots conservatives. And I've got a number of organizations beyond my company, and one of them is Political Action Committee, Fed Up PAC. And so our #1 project now is to empower 5 million grassroots activists like y'all to not only read and study and listen to Fox and use Max TV, etc., but then become activists. Okay, and after you read that good book, pass it on. Give it to your brother-in-law. Pass this on. Forward articles. Forward emails. We've got to get 5 million people who are activists engaged, and then we can turn America around. But we're going to not change America from a 40% pro-life to a 60% pro-life country unless it happens with the people, at the grassroots, and we have to educate people about the pro-life movement and cause. So it just it comes down to us. And Lexington and Concord, the shot heard around the world, launched the American Revolution. Who was the commanding officer that day at Lexington and Concord?
It was Clark, wasn't it?
Who?
Pastor? It was a pastor.
Nobody.
Nobody.
Every patriot heard the sound of the guns, grabbed a musket, and ran to the sound of the guns. Rushed to the battle. So don't wait for certainly me or Youngkin or Donald Trump or DeSantis or anybody else. Rush to the sound of the guns. By the way, in the debate Wednesday with Newsom and DeSantis, in the first 2 Republican debates, who won those debates?
Donald Trump.
I think you all agree with me. Trump. Trump won the debates because he's got a 40-50% lead, and not a one of them did anything to
differentiate
get into that lead.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you beat Newsom. It doesn't matter if you beat Haley or this. Okay. People have made a buying decision. They voted for Trump in 2016. They voted for him in 2020. I might change my mind, but you've got to give me a reason. When I go into Wegmans, my favorite grocery store, and I buy Tide washing powder, I'm not in love with Tide. I might change my mind, but you got to give me a reason to change from Tide. What's my reason? Okay, so now one of them understands how to run for president. I wrote, which you ran, Tom, an op-ed piece in the Washington Times about 6 weeks ago. You ran it just like I wrote it, except one thing I should have called you. I didn't like your headline. it was positive. It said, 6 ways to run for president, something like that. But every one of them, who except for Trump, is failing marketing 101. You've got to have a brand, and a brand is very, very. It's not a famous name. United Airlines doesn't have a brand. American, no brand. A brand is when you own a category, when you would buy no other product but that one. When I go into Wegmans, I regularly go to the paper towels. And if they're giving away Bounty and Brawny, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to pay money for Viva. I'm a Viva man. My dad before me was. And I've got a pocket right now full of Viva paper towels. It owns a category. It's a premium paper towel. It's like having a handkerchief in your pocket. Okay, it's a premium paper towel. They've got a brand and they own that category. So Reagan, when he ran for president in 1976 and 1980, had 1.5. What do I say? What's the word? You got to have a base. That's it. You got to have a base. Okay. So Trump's base when he ran in 2016. Anybody got an idea what his base was?
It's small.
Base was, if I pull out my billfold, it's $10 billion. Give me $10 billion, I'll run for president. And so that was his base. And he gave, a lot of businessmen out there frustrated, upset, feel like Trump does, but they didn't have $10 billion. And so that gave him his base. Reagan had 1.5 bases. His half base was wealthy California friends. That's enough to get you to the starting gate, does not get you to the finish line. His full base was the conservative movement. On short notice, he could go into Oshkosh at 10 o'clock at night. There'd be 250 people there, a band, ready for the next morning's television. He'd be on it. So he had that base all across the country out there. So you gotta have a base. And, DeSantis didn't claim a base. And Nikki and this one and that one out there. So they don't know how to run for president. It's just so simple. All right, I'm abusing my time here.
No, not at all. Carry on.
So anyway, let me just say, we all know the importance of 2024, but it is the ball game. It really, really is. The left literally did rig the 2022 election, and they are fast rigging the 2024 election, and they give them four more years after 2024 in the White House. We never win another national election. Just not going to be possible. They rigged the election by things like draining the national strategic oil reserve to lower the gas, to forgive 20 million student loans out there. Mail-in ballots, drop boxes in inner city neighborhoods where their voters are, etc., etc. And John Podesta is probably right now at the White House shoveling out billions and billions of dollars to every left-wing organization in the country. All that COVID money, in the early COVID money, $189 billion went to education, the teachers union out there, and they are just rigging the election every which way they can, and with our own money out there, and give them 4 more years, we'll never win again. So we can win, we really can, but it's going to take the people at the and I've got where is it here? Oh, I've got some little pamphlets here that I wrote a year or two ago. So if they're free, just take one here, and I'll just put them up here. And it talks about what each individual can do, how an individual can save America, all the things that you can do.
That's about, yeah.
So all of us, you couldn't 50 years ago. You probably couldn't have done a whole lot as an individual. Today, with the internet out there and the mass communication we have out there, we're all empowered in a way. Everybody can be a Rupert Murdoch these days, and you got housewives, insurance salesmen, who have podcasts with thousands of people, and blogs out there. There's so much that all of us can do. So menu to do it, and keep in mind rush to the sound of the guns. We're in a spiritual civil war, and don't wait for orders from Carl or Tom or me or anybody else. Just what needs to be done, and go and do it, and we can save America. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we can open the floor now to question Q&A. We can do questions if anyone has a question or wants to raise anything. John, go ahead.
I just have a comment. 40 years ago, and I don't know if anyone in this room would know this or remember it, even the people who live here at Peyton Farms. There was a crisis in this community, this rush to the guns, run to the guns. And the crisis was the county was going to build a landfill right down within a mile of here. And that's when, as the editor of the local newspaper, I met the people of Peyton Farms. That's this little one-road place coming up right up through here. And to a person, I think the groundhogs even came out to gripe about the possibility of a landfill right in their backyard, literally in their backyard, right down in the woods. I just showed my wife when we came in the back way. That's where the landfill was going to be, and you can't even picture it. But every Tom, Dick, and Harry was out at every public meeting, writing letters to the editor. They were livid. They were hornets. And they defeated that, even though it was a foregone conclusion that it was going to happen right here in the middle of this big county. And in no other way, shape, or form was that landfill going to be anywhere else until the people rose up and said, we've had it. That's it. It's not going to be in our neighborhood. And they beat that down. And it was not by a vote. It was by pressure. It was pressure on the local supervisors and everything else. Now, the landfill was located within a year or two of that on the very perimeter edge with Culpeper and Fauquier County, way out on Route 211, on the very edge of Rappahannock County. It's not central at all. They got one up the road that's central. In fact, I proposed as the editor that they put it where they have the little, where you drop off your stuff. I said, that's central. The schools and the county own all that property in there. There's not a whole lot of development at that time in that area. That's where it should go if it's got to be in the middle of the county. But it didn't win out here. Access was not good. The back roads are terrible. I talked about Envision, paper flying everywhere, people having automobile and truck accidents on these back roads to get to the landfill. And it is right on the edge of the county. It is so close to the neighboring counties. And that landfill built 40 years ago is full now. It's full. And so imagine what this woods down here, it wouldn't be a woods at all, it'd be a city, is what it would be. It'd be like Trash Hill or whatever it is on the way to Virginia Beach. But the point that you made so aptly is, where's the hornet's nest? Well, who's gonna run to the guns? And I do have a slogan, it's been my personal one for the Democratic Party for years. The Democrats are the party of promiscuity. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. They're the party of promiscuity. And you said it.
Yeah,
You
spend-
talked about
spending and it doesn't matter,
extramarital
anything,
sex,
yeah.
premarital sex,
Yeah.
any sex outside of marriage.
Yeah, good, well said, John. I was talking to a few people during lunch about Mike Ferris. I don't know who you know who Mike Ferris is,
Right.
but Mike's a giant of a conservative leader. Founded Patrick Henry College and is the #1 homeschool expert in the country. Lawyer, founded a number of homeschool nonprofits, etc. Ran for lieutenant governor of Virginia in 1989. I know that because I ran in 1985. And the Roger Stone said, who was my friend then and now, said Richard wanted to run for lieutenant governor in the worst way, and he did. So anyway, Mike is a young lawyer many years ago, and had a client, long story short, in San Diego who was a former lesbian, had taken a child that the lesbian relationship had and kidnapped it, so to speak, as the law said. It took him, and so anyway, she comes back and Mike's defending her there in San Diego. And jury pool of 35 or so people, he asked the jury pool how many there knew a homosexual. Every hand goes up. So how many of you know a evangelical Christian? 2 hands went up. Okay, they probably all knew evangelical Christians, but the evangelical Christians didn't talk about it. They didn't say it. You know, they kept their views and values to themselves. We can no longer have that luxury. We just cannot have that luxury. You know, and every Christmas and between Christmas and New Year's for 40 years, I go down to Charleston, South Carolina, something called the Renaissance. It's a thing that Clinton made famous years ago. And I've been going there 40 years, I say. And a lot of liberal friends. Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law, former Congresswoman Margie Margolis, is a dear friend. My best friend there for all these years, excuse me, is Dr. Ruth. You're old enough to know Dr. Ruth. I've been our paper boy forever. I slipped the New York Times under her door every morning. You know, and we're best buddies. We're in a taxi in London 20 years ago with my wife, the 3 of us, and we were there for something involved with Renaissance. And her husband had died about 1.5 years earlier. And she said, points at my wife and I said, "You've got to find me a husband. He's got to be a Jew. He's got to be walking, but he doesn't have to have money. I got money." So anyway, I say all of that, by the way. I've got 35 nationally known liberals who are good friends of mine. And almost every one of them. Dr. Ruth never misses an opportunity to tell me to support Planned Parenthood. You know, they speak up. They all do it all the time. And we're silent. We can be silent no more. Any other comments?
No, it's pretty tough. Mark Levin has a book that says Democrats Hate America.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could really run on that. I don't. It's really not something you could. You want to show something positive. I mean, that was the brilliance of Trump. Make America great again.
Yeah.
That's
One thing about Trump. Anybody know who? Scott Adams. Anybody know who Scott Adams is? He writes this cartoon. You've seen all of it. Dilbert. Right, Dilbert. Okay, and brilliant writer, great thinker. He sees human nature very clearly and all very well. And so he wrote a book maybe 4 or 5 years ago called Going Bigly. I think it is. Yeah, Going Bigly. Yeah, and he just talks about Trump, the Trump campaign, how Trump saw the electorate in 2016, and he made an interesting comment. Says Trump didn't try to change anybody's opinion. He identified a narrative that's going on in your head, and everybody's got narratives going on in their head, and I got into that narrative. I just played to that narrative. So, you know, there's a parade going down the street, and he just runs in front of the parade and leaves it there. Very natural. Just another quick comment on the, you know, every election in the history of free elections in the world, no exception, every election is about the future, never the past. If you don't believe me, ask Sir Winston Churchill. 5 weeks after he literally saved the British people's lives, they threw him out of office in a landslide. In a landslide, they threw him out of office, okay? Because he's talking about the past, and Labor is talking about the future. So, you know, you can talk about rigged elections. You don't want to talk about the stolen election in 2020, I don't think, and you're not going to win if you do. And I had occasion to be with Carrie Lake, candidate for Senate, Arizona, several times recently, and Carrie, you know, it's the future, the future, the future, and was pleased to see that her announcement statement was all 99% future oriented. So when you talk about rigged elections, that's the future. They're rigging the 2024 election, and that's fair game. You can do that. You need to do that. Okay, we need to call them out. Need to put spotlight on that. All right.
I have
Go ahead.
just what you said about this being a spiritual
Civil War.
rather than what has preceded in our history, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I would say, as a student of history, I would rate myself probably a C. As a prophetic voice, I would rate myself maybe a C minus. But in my heart, when you've got, you know, a martyr like Trump, like everyone in his family, I believe that there is something at the root of our society, of humanity, that when that happens, it's just the unfairness of it. All the crap that's going on that is madness, as we all know, about transing children and just all of the things that are beyond what any civilization could endure. I see it as a spiritual battle, and that in my heart, I feel more than I hope that that the American people will rise up, whether it's in the form of an election, which of course would be ideal. But I think, like you said, Lexington and Concord, when they heard the guns go, they knew what to do. They didn't have to ask any consultation. They knew exactly what to do. And I think we're just being pushed and pushed and pushed in this direction of insanity. That I just really believe and hope that that as a country we're going to stand up and we're going to have people who will speak loudly, who will act, who will not stand for this insanity, because it is existential.
I'm going to go to 5 o'clock mass today because I host a bunch of men, mostly men, few wives, on Sunday morning coffee at my home, so I need to be there early in the morning. But usually I go to 8:15 mass at St. Peter's here. But when I come out of mass, everybody knows my politics there, and they just can't wait to pounce on me. Richard, you hear about this outrageous thing? You hear about this? You know what? And my response is always, great, glad to hear it. I have a Marxist attitude, which is worse is better. So, you know, no guarantees, but the worst things get out there, it gives us a chance to turn things around. The frog being cooked slowly or fast, because that frog is being boiled, the water is boiling now, and it gives us a chance. As I said earlier, the issues line up better for us now, unfortunately, than the history of the Republican Party. And so it's an opportunity to take advantage of this and turn everything around. But we've got to do it. We can't wait for orders from headquarters.
Richard, I would challenge you today.
Oh, please.
Yes, I believe that what you're saying must be heard every day for 2-3 minutes of a statement from the Republican Party on YouTube. Because that way, you know how we all exchange the videos, you know, funny things. I'm tired of funny things. I would send your video to half of the world, just seriously, as a statement that, okay, how we making great America today? What needs to be done today? If you would 2-3 minutes, trust me, we will win versus even this one, because we are in these challenging times of the YouTube era, and I see how viral those videos are going. I beg you, I'm serious, I beg you, if you would just put the telephone and say, okay, how do we make great America today? We need to focus today on this thing. Tomorrow you say second thing, on the next thing, and I promise you, we will win election before the election time.
Well, thank you.
This is my opinion.
My office is after me all the time, particularly Kathleen, my president CEO, and she's younger, almost everybody's younger than me, so she's younger than me. She said, that's how people communicate now, video, 1, 2, 3. And, I, once a week I do a blog post, and Tom, do you get it? You should.
Can you share with us too?
Yeah, I'll be glad.
Okay.
Anybody that gives me your contact information, I'll give you. Put you on the list where you'll get regular things that I do. I send about every month to about 10,000 conservative leaders. Emmy gets it. Tom gets it. Marching orders: do this, start doing that, stop this, start this. But to do something every day, I've thought about it, but so. I'm sleeping 6 hours now, so I sleep 5 hours.
2 minutes.
But
It's
it
only
is
2
really
minutes.
time consuming to do all this
2
stuff.
minutes. No, it's 2 minutes.
But,
No, it's never just
I
2
will
minutes.
give
Never
serious
just 2
thought
minutes.
to that. So
The
anyway,
production takes a while.
It's the 17th of April in '75. Those who remember Longworth's poem. As Paul Revere is riding through the countryside, what is he saying that night?
Redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming.
So he didn't say. People say the British are coming. No. That's like saying your neighbors are coming. Your neighbors are coming. Everybody was British. The regulars are coming. Everybody knew what a regular.
Oh,
The
right.
redcoats are coming. Everybody knew what a redcoat was. So the redcoats are coming. The regulars are coming. And so they all grabbed a musket and rushed to the sound of the guns. So I know that. Quite frankly, I know it needs to be done. Go back to John Adams, 1776. Can't you see what I see?
Yes.
That's very frustrating.
Richard, one more quick question.
Yeah.
How would you address, and what should we do with the minority groups, with the Latinos, African Americans? Because for some reason they rely more to Democrats than to us. How would you address that?
In any number of ways. One of the best ways is to run Hispanic candidates, run black candidates, and we're doing that more and more. We came close to having a wonderful governor in Kentucky, African American. He got 47.5% of the vote. But interesting, Kentucky, we lost the governor's race, 47.5 to 52.5, but ran away with lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state. 57 and 60%. So the voters are there, So it's very hard to beat an incumbent. It's what I was saying earlier. People have buying habits, and once they've made a buying decision, it's tough to get them off that buying decision. So in terms of beyond running minority candidates, we need to focus on their issues, and I am doing that. I've got I'm just developing. I just got my first one called a pocket card. I didn't bring a sample here, but it's just one heavy stock card printing on both sides. It's for sometimes I'm going to do 2 panels, so it'll be 4 sides there on a very narrow issue. Here's all the ways that the Democrats are trying to rig the 2024 election. Okay, here's all the ways that they rigged the 2022 election. Here's what's happening to America because of their defund the police movement. Here's what's happening in this area, that area. And so with minorities, every minority maybe has their issues. A lot of Hispanics are entrepreneurially driven. And so you talk about all the anti-small business activities of the Democrats. With African American, you talk about national security. With women, particularly young women, security, that's a big issue out there, okay? And privacy. I'm, I don't know, 25 years ago or so, Asa Hutchinson was a congressman from Arkansas, and his brother was a senator. And so I go down there to support him for something, I forget what. And Dave Keene is there with the National Rifle Association, you know, and there's 5 or 6 us conservatives there. And we have dinner with H. Hudson one night, and he asked a very interesting question. He threw it out to the table there, 5, 6 of us. What issue are we not thinking about now that's going to be a big issue down the road here in 5 years, 10 years? What's going to be the you know, a big issue that's we're overlooking right now? And quick like a fox, Dave Keene said privacy. And it really was true. You know, privacy is a huge issue now. You know, the name of my company, I named it wrong, is American Target Advertising. I should have said American Marketing, direct American Target Advertising should be direct marketing advertising. So anyway, but it's targeted marketing, very targeted. And so you target not just the voters, but you target women of a certain group. You target you know, evangelical seniors a certain way. You just do it by a very narrow. That's the world we live in now. It's all targeted marketing. I'm a young direct marketing, been in business 3 or 4 years, and in those days we had all names and addresses were kept on metal plates called scriptomatic plates, metal plates. And by then I had about 2-3 million names and addresses on these metal plates. And some idiot in the post office came up with the idea of zip codes. What am I going to do with 3 million? Of course, we couldn't imagine life without zip codes now.
Have you done your memoir?
Go big is a little bit something, but for my 90th birthday, we got about 15-20 hours of conservative leaders on tape. You know, all the Brent Rosells, Dave King.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I want to do it, but I've got literally a big stack of paper all over my desk, you know, and it doesn't get, as the day goes on, it doesn't go down, it goes up. Because I'm one of 2.5% of the world's population. 2.5% are entrepreneurs. And every 20-30 minutes, I have a new idea. There's a new rabbit, let's go down that rabbit. Oh, there's one over here 10 more minutes later. And the pile grows and grows, nothing but ideas.
I thought I had a mental problem because I live like that.
Yeah.
Now I see. You're the veteran. You're really the veteran.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to produce here soon our video, which is hopefully will be not just about me, how fast I ran, how high I jumped, but the conservative movement. And I've got, you know, hours, 20 hours, maybe 15 hours.
You gotta go.
And I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, Richard, when I went to vote in 2020, I was told I'd already voted by mail. And you
Really?
Yeah, and you mentioned 2022 was voter fraud and 23, but do you think 20 was up and up? And
I know nothing about it. I'm sure there was a situation like that. Absolutely sure.
It was all mail-in ballots.
Yeah, fraud.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, Pennsylvania was big.
Jason George's.
I mean, they showed you on video boxes that were just kind of brought in. I mean,
Jason got 4 ballots mailed to him in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I have a friend in LA that's lived in owned his house for 32 years, had 7 ballots that he didn't recognize mailed to that house.
well, even this goes back to even Kennedy time. Kennedy, a lot of dead voters.
Yeah, see, the Democrats know never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
it.
got COVID out there, so we can't go vote with people. You can do it by mail.
Yeah.
They're so much smarter. That's why I say they have major leadership we don't touch. We don't have that kind of leadership. So to this, Tom asked about my memoirs. We all have, you know, pro bono projects and things, you know, whether it's the Boy Scouts or something else interesting. My #1 pro bono project for the conservative movement for 25 years has been to do a history of the conservative movement. You know, my attitude is if we don't write our history, our enemies will. Winston Churchill was interviewed by a journalist about 1941, 42, and part of the interview he says, "Mr. Prime Minister, how will history remember you?" History will remember me as a great man that did this great thing and this great thing. All due respect, Mr. Prime Minister, how can you be so confident history will remember you that way? Oh, very simple. I will write the history books. And so, and you were at Pumpkin Papers?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's an annual event, Pumpkin Papers. Dinner, a couple of hundred conservatives get together every year for 40 years in Washington, D.C. And Pumpkin Papers comes from Whitaker Chambers. Everybody know Whitaker Chambers? Okay. So on October 31st, he's got the evidence for Alger Hiss, etc., on microfiche. Little I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, it was microfiche. They was a communist bomb.
Early magnetic tape, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway, he wants to hide it because he thinks the communists are going to come and kill him and get the tape. So he's got a pumpkin patch in his garden in Cambridge, Maryland. So he goes and hollows out one of the pumpkins, puts the paper in there. The next day, the FBI comes, so he gives it to them. So we celebrate the pumpkin papers every October 31st or close to that. So anyway, I won't say his name here, but one of our giants in the conservative movement was there, and so I knew he'd had some health issues, and I said, how's your health? And he said, well, the doctor said I've got 2 to 3 months to live, and he seemed to be in good health. And so he's got so many stories. He was there at the beginning. He knows this and that I don't know. So consequently, I emailed Morton Blackwell over the weekend and Lee Edwards. Lee Edwards, I'm 002, active at the national level longer than every living conservative except for Dr. Lee Edwards. And everybody else is dead. Goldwater, Buckley, Fall.
Buckley, yeah.
And so, and Lee Edwards is a historian of the conservative movement. So Lee said it was a great idea to interview this person for a couple of hours. Morton said he would give us his TV studio and provide the crew and all that. So then I reached out to him and said, he said he doesn't like to do this type of thing, but he'll do it. So anyway, he's going to do it. And we'll get 2 or 3 hours of him on tape, going back, he knew many of the intellectual giants, Buckley, Frank Meyer, etc. Whitaker Chambers, etc. So that's just an obsession with me. I've tried to talk to the Washington Times about it. Hillsdale, Heritage, Young Americans for Freedom, not Club for Growth, Roger Reed, Fund for American Studies.
Fund for American Studies.
Yeah, et cetera, and they all are interested in it, they think about it, the Washington Times thought about it. You had a president before you that I had, Dave Keene. Huh?
David Keene or Larry?
No, Dave Keene and I had lunch with him there in downtown and trying to sell him. He seemed to be interested in the project. Heritage has 25, 30 hours of people, myself, Phil Schlafly, F. St. Evans on tape, and Ron Godwin at Liberty has done this and that, but nobody's taken on a project.
We're talking about the history of the conservative movement. Is that the topic?
The what now?
The history
History of conservative movement.
So let's talk. Let's do that.
Okay.
I'm the chairman.
It's a great idea.
Let's do it.
Okay, good, yeah. I've talked to everybody, and they all kind of like the idea, but nobody grabs the bait and runs with it.
Let's set up a meeting.
You want an institution, something that's going to be
No
here,
question about
been
it.
here for years, will be here for many more years.
I've got a question. God bless you. And I mean, we go back to the time with Dr. Pock and the Reagan era, and when the Times was founded 41 years ago. I can't say enough about Richard Viguerie, and I'm a marketer by trade and profession, and I learned so much from Richard and his direct market, how to reach the citizen. And so we came across something today, the American majority, which is Speaker Gingrich's concept, but your focus on what a citizen can do. I love your pamphlet.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a strategy to grow the Times based on how can the Times exist to inform citizens so they can make the right decisions. You talked about reaching 5 million people for the Fed Up network. I'm thinking we could probably build 1,000 or so per congressional district of Times readers. Would love to get your thoughts on that vis-a-vis the 2024 election. I'm willing to pull the trigger on all kinds of things to make that happen, as you know.
Well, we've dated before, but we've never really gone all the way. So every once in a while, every 5 years we talk.
Wait, we gotta tell something. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, 12 years of Catholic school, almost went to seminary when I was in 7th grade. I almost got to the point I'm gonna be a priest. And I shared that with Richard. And then he says, he had the same experience. You know what the problem was? Testosterone. Which is the importance of the family. Anyway, I'm just teeing it up. Anything you can say in terms of how to touch that critical factor, which is the citizen. the heart, the mind, the soul of an American citizen, times 100,000 in every congressional district. I talked to Newt about this. That's what I want the Washington Times to do. And how can we do that collaboratively with that core group of conservative leaders? But anything you'd like to say, God bless you for your work.
Just along the lines of what Tom was saying there, I've said for decades, my role model is Moses. Deuteronomy 34, verse 7, and Moses lived to be 120. His eye was not dim, nor his vital forces abated. And I tell all
And
my...
you will.
I'm with you on that.
The,
Longevity.
and Moses lived his life in 3 40-year compartments. 40 years in the house of the Pharaoh, learning how to be a leader, etc. You know, and then 40 years in the wilderness with his family, his father-in-law Jethro, etc. And then when he turned 80 is when he began to lead the Israelites. So 99% of what we know about Moses was after he turned 80. So all these liberal friends I've got out there, I tell them all, look out. Just getting started.
You're amazing.
So anyway, no, I've been blessed with good health, and I love what I do. And you know, and I've, as most of us all have done, I've read that Bible from cover to cover. I cannot find the word retire in there. If everybody you know, I'm a far better marketer than I was 10 years ago, infinitely better than 20 years ago. And the idea that I could go work on my shuffleboard game or something, you know, I mean, God wouldn't like that, I don't think.
Bob Woodson says you retire from a job, you expire from a mission.
Who says that?
Bob Woodson.
Oh yeah, Bob Woodson.
That's a good man.
I thought you said Bob Woodward. I used to play poker with the Washington Post people years ago.
Wow.
And so we just go to Bob Woodward's house there and all that. So, but Bob Woodson's a great American.
Yeah, he is.
Great American, yeah. That's it. All right, well, thank you all very much. And no further
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you out
for
there.
your
If anybody wants a second book for a brother-in-law, a neighbor, feel free to come up. We've got some
Oh,
left
thank
here.
you.